And that is why I'm just so delighted to be here tonight, because each one of you, from a grassroots perspective, is contributing to the cultural shift that I believe is truly on now in Australia and is being embraced by Australians. And that is our journey towards what will truly be gender equality. Now, I understand that the panel tonight will be exploring the challenges and opportunities for young women. And as I said before, it's so nice to just have to stand up here tonight, say a few words and open it, and then actually sit down and listen to what our panellists have to say. Now, Megan, I know you were going to introduce our 4 panellists shortly, but ladies and gentlemen, when you read the biographies of these 4 remarkable young women, I was so inspired by what they have achieved. And when you look at their ages, and we have little Ella here, who is but 11 years of age, and already at 11 years of age, she has achieved so much. Haven't you, Ella? You are absolutely fantastic, and it's so great to see you here tonight. I am just so humbled to be amongst you and to be amongst your fellow panel members. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe as a woman in Australia that we are so lucky that we're able to stand upon the shoulders of those women who have gone before us decades and decades ago and achieved so much for us in terms of gender equality. I look at our 4 panellists tonight. Where's our 4th one gone? 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, the front. Sorry, I'm looking over this way. 4. The legacy you are going to leave, given what you have achieved to date so far in life, is that one day someone's going to be standing up here and they're going to be reflecting on what you achieved for women in Australia, what you achieved for women internationally, and they're going to be able to stand on your shoulders and they're going to be able to carry on with your achievements. I just briefly have to read out a little bit to you about each of our panellists tonight. Mariah Kennedy, a young woman passionate about social justice and human rights. She has raised thousands of dollars for charity, organised a conference in which 10 high schools participated, was appointed a 2012 UNICEF Australia Young Ambassador, and has edited and published a book. Mariah, well done. Absolutely sensational. Ella up the front here, Ella Cuthbert, 11 years of age, and is the youngest of our panel members. Ella and I have actually met before, haven't we, Ella? And I was at a function, and I said to the group of students, now if anybody wants to know more about politics, you know, feel free to come and grab me afterwards and get my mobile number or my email number. Guess who was the first person in the room who did jump up and came up to me, and actually, you know, I'll never forget that, Ella. Your enthusiasm and your passion, I can understand exactly why you are here tonight, and you are one of the panellists. Yari Bangura moved with her family to Australia from Sierra Leone as a young girl. Yari, I don't know what it's like in Sierra Leone, but I do know we welcome you with open arms to Australia. Yari is an advocate for justice and for equality. She is an ambassador for the UN's High Commissioner for Refugees and engages with the community on human rights issues. She has worked with the Marrickable Youth Resource Centre over the years, sharing her experience as a refugee and providing insights into the devastating impact of human rights abuses. Yari, it is wonderful to have you here tonight as well. And Heidi Beck, originally from the United States. I asked Heidi, are you now in Australia? The answer is yes. Which state do you choose to live in? Sydney. That's all right, but when you're from Perth, but the good news is Heidi has been to Perth, so that was all right. But again, another outstanding young person. Heidi's a Harvard Business School graduate. She has a background working in transport logistics and in infrastructure with McKinsey & Company. She is currently the head of strategy at Qantas. And I have to say, if I had to stop there, it would be pretty impressive, Heidi. But then you actually learn that Heidi juggles this role whilst being a mum to 2 or 1? One child, that didn't stop her, she's now having another one. Again, ladies and gentlemen, these are just remarkable young Australians, and it really is our privilege collectively to be here tonight and to engage with them and to listen to what they have to say in relation to contributing to debate in terms of gender equality. Can I also, though, acknowledge the ongoing work of the YWCA? Your advocacy program and the work that you do is critical in developing women, in particular in relation to leadership roles. As a women's-led organisation, YWCA provides a vital role in advocacy to ensure that the issues affecting women, affecting girls, affecting families, affecting the community are brought to the attention of policymakers like myself. YWCA is at the forefront of raising women's issues in society, and I commend you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's going to be a very exciting panel debate, and it is just my absolute delight to officially launch the panel discussion. Thank you.
And while you've done that, I'm going to just interrupt a little bit before we do that. Launch the wait for a minute. Yeah, that's right. And I'd like to thank you, Senator, your commitment to improving the lives of women and girls, keeping them safe and showcasing their talents and their gifts is very clear. And I thank you for that. I'd now like to introduce fabulous Anna Bligh, who's the Chief Executive of the YWCA in New South Wales. Anna joined the Y in January this year, so she's pretty new, but it does allow her to draw on her considerable experience, her leadership skills and commitment to make long-term sustainable change in the lives of vulnerable people and young people and children in New South Wales. So I'd like you to join me in welcoming Anna Bligh.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioner Mitchell. It's great to join you and all of our other guests here this evening. Can I, on behalf of everybody here, congratulate the Honourable Michaelia Cash on her appointment as the Minister assisting the Prime Minister on Women and many other things that you have in your portfolio. I know the responsibilities that you bear as a Minister. I know what it feels like to have the hopes and aspirations of women sitting on your shoulders, and I wish you all the best with what I think is a very important role in federal government. To Commissioner Liz Broderick and to Commissioner Megan Mitchell and to Julian Trigg, it's wonderful to be in partnership with the Human Rights Commission for this event this evening. I'm very pleased that I'm also joined by some senior members of the YWCA. I'm pleased to have here the CEO of YWCA Australia, Caroline Lambert, two of our board members here in New South Wales, Tristan Landers, and as you heard about Heidi Beck. What was not on the list of all the other remarkable things she does, she's also a board member of YWCA here in New South Wales, and a very valued member of our board, so great to see her tonight on the panel. And I'm very pleased that we could be joined tonight by someone who's very special to us at YWCA, and that's Vivian Ashcroft. Vivian is a life member of YWCA Australia. She's a former CEO of the Sydney YWCA as it was then, and been a member for 52 years. So that's what you call spending your life fighting for women's rights. Well done, Vivian. She's at the other end of the spectrum from Ella, but it's all part of the same continuum. We welcome this opportunity at YWCA to join with the Human Rights Commission in beginning the celebrations over the next fortnight of International Women's Day. This is a global day. It is an opportunity for women around the world, for communities around the world, to focus on the issues of rights, equality and justice for women and girls. It is a day when women are also recognised for their achievements, and there is so much to celebrate. I think it is important to celebrate progress. I'm a great fan of the Martin Luther King quote that the great arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. When you are an organisation as old as the YWCA, you can take one step back and see the progress that has been made, and despite the frustrations along the way, that the great arc of history is bending towards justice. When the YWCA was founded in 1855, nowhere in the world did women have the right to vote. Now we're here at an event with female minister. We have in Australia recently seen the appointment of our first woman Governor-General, our first woman Prime Minister, the first woman Foreign Minister, first woman Attorney-General, the first Aboriginal woman in Parliament, and many, many, many other firsts that are now becoming no longer remarkable firsts, but increasingly commonplace. I'm very fond of the next story, which was that in the 1880s, when the YWCA in Sydney first formed, women were not allowed to open bank accounts in their own name. So to get around this, the YWCA became a bank. They started visiting women. They started visiting women in factories to collect their savings, and they set up what was called thrift clubs. But it was a very important part of empowering women to have some independent finances, and you can, I think, never underestimate how important that is. It's inconceivable to any woman in this room that you couldn't walk into a bank and open an account. But when the YWCA in Sydney first started to acquire property, when people left them some properties in their wills, some of those actually had to be put into their husbands' names. And they said, we'll just put it in his name and we'll work around that. And that's exactly what they did. So for many reasons, we are delighted to be here tonight, working in partnership with the Human Rights Commission. We are very, very proud to share a platform with someone of the calibre of Commissioner Elizabeth Broderick, whose program Champions of Change has received rightfully global recognition and is being heralded the world over as a model for creating real and sustainable gender equality in the workplace and the community. Similarly, Commissioner Megan Mitchell's Big Banter has given kids a way to communicate about the human rights issues that continue to affect them, even in countries like Australia, where unfortunately we still can't say that all children are safe. The YWCA is very proud that we've spent our entire history doing our bit to grow women leaders. Early on in our history, we were confronted with all sorts of prejudices about the role of women in society, and we've systematically worked with women over many decades to grow their ability and confidence to take on leadership roles. Today, we continue that tradition with a program called Every Girl. Every Girl is a program for young women in the upper years of primary school, and we're delighted that Ella Cuthbert, who is a graduate of the Every Girl program, will be speaking with us tonight. I think you'll see when Ella speaks that our aims in this program to encourage young women as young as primary school age to see themselves as people who can make an impact on the world and to act with confidence and authority is certainly achieved in this young graduate. Ella has also participated in the YWCA's program called Respect, Communicate and Choose. This is an age-appropriate program that relates to education in primary school children. It is about helping young people to develop respectful relationships. Minister Cash, we look forward to talking to you about the future of that program, and I don't want to be too cheeky, but I know the government's looking at a second national plan, and I'm not going to waste the opportunity up here not to let you know that we'll be advocating, and we're very pleased that you like us being advocates. Finally, as we celebrate International Women's Day, can I say that we'll be very pleased to be joining the Human Rights Commission at the UN for the largest annual gathering on gender equality, and you can expect that Australia will be raising its voice. One of the projects that we'll be raising our voice very loudly on is, along with our partners in the Girls Not Brides campaign, we'll be calling for a target to eradicate child marriage within a generation. Something I think Australian women can really work hard and make a global difference on. So I hope you find great inspiration in the panel tonight. I hope you leave here feeling a renewed commitment to fighting injustice and equality wherever you find it and in all of its forms. Please enjoy.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you for your time today and joining with us in partnership today. And good luck in the new role. I know you won't believe it, but you know you won't need it. You'll be terrific. And I must say, in talking to children around Australia last year as part of the Big Banter, and thank you for mentioning it, a lot of kids did talk about the WISE programs and that they'd been through either the leadership programs or the respectful relationship program, and it really did leave them with a lasting impact on their respect for themselves and respect for others, and I think it'd be a fabulous program. Yeah, I'd like to see more of it. So in keeping with the theme, and now we're here for the main game, the Women's Day theme this year is Inspiring Change. We'll now be hearing from our 4 panellists who are inspiring change today and yesterday and into the future. And our first panellist today is the remarkable young Mariah Kennedy, and we've already heard a little bit about her. She's 17 now? Yeah, just 17, in her final year of school now, but a lot of the stuff she's done was, has been through the years of her high school years in particular. And as the minister pointed out, she edited and published a book called, and managed to get a whole lot of illustrators and authors on board in doing that, called Reaching Out, Messages of Hope. And this was to influence other young Australians to become advocates for social justice and human rights. It's a remarkable thing to do at such a young age. And as a result of that work, Mariah was awarded the Young Human Rights Medal of the Australian Human Rights Commission last year. And it was a fabulous night. It was great to hear Mariah speak at that point, and so I'm sure she will do a fabulous job tonight. So can we all welcome Mariah?
Hello everyone, and thank you so much for having me here today. It's an absolute honour and privilege to have been invited to share this afternoon with you. So today I'm speaking about the impact of gender stereotypes on young women's lives. And I must admit, when I received this invitation to talk on this topic, I didn't really have any idea where to start. I haven't done a PhD or conducted scientific studies on the topic, and I'm not really what you could call an objective observer. But I am a young woman growing up in Australia today. And for every day of the 17 years that I've been on this earth, I've faced the realities of the gender stereotypes which dictate the rules of our society. I've been confronted again and again by the fact that by being female, I'm exposed to a starkly different world to the world in which my younger brother is growing up. As a young woman, I've been taught daily to find shame in my body, insecurity in myself, and I've been taught to cave in, to make room around myself both literally and figuratively for the men and boys in my life. So having considered such, I figured I'm probably as qualified as anyone to talk about this. In the free and democratic Australia in which we live today, it's really easy to assume that genders are equal, and the feminist movement of the 1960s put a concrete end to any discrimination which may have taken place. I remember feeling confronted and confused in Year 7 when my drama teacher at school asked me if I was a feminist. I equated the question to being asked if I was a Viking or a freedom rider, such did it seem a movement of the past. It was only last year, as I started reading into issues of gender within Australia, that I felt almost as if fog began to lift from over my eyes. Suddenly everywhere, absolutely everywhere that I looked, I was seeing sexism. Stereotyping based on gender begins at birth. The crucial point, the moment in which our gender is discovered, is the moment which decides, as a matter of course, what kind of world we brought into. The doctor would tick a box on our birth certificate, M or F, and from that point in time, our existence will be catered to the box that was ticked. It begins with the choice of colours that adorn the walls of our nursery. It manifests itself in the princess doll or action figure that we cling to for comfort. It can be heard in the tone of a stranger's voice as they approach our pram. It's clear in the movies we watch. For girls, magical tales of princes and love and dropping everything that mattered before you met him to wed and live happily ever after. For boys, it's superheroes who are strong and able and routinely save the lives of every citizen in town. Our early childhood is the time in which we're most open to absorbing messages and forming opinions about the world around us. From then, the bar's been set. The binary continues to develop, and our society is split into two, men and women. In Australian culture, women are currently doing the best they've ever done. A larger percentage than ever before are staying in school, going to uni, and graduating into the workforce. But while the expectation to be successful, smart, and creative has been raised, the expectation that women will continue to fulfill the traditional roles, like being a good wife, a good mum and a loving wife, being conventionally attractive and a good cook, has stayed as high as ever. There's been no trade-off. Now you just have to be good at everything. The level of objectification which surrounds us as women is frankly scary. Every day we're presented with the notion that our bodies are not our own. It's as if we owe those around us a perfect woman, and if we can't work ourselves into fitting the mould of that perfect woman, then we've failed. We're bombarded with photoshopped perfection, a computer-generated notion of beauty that's impossible to achieve even for the models themselves. We see news reports dissecting the clothing choices of our female politicians and leaders. We watch them ridiculed publicly and routinely for their appearance. We see endless magazine cover stories heaping shame on female celebrities for their weight gain while they're pregnant. We listen to hit songs which tell us that you don't know you're beautiful and that's what makes you beautiful. In other words, letting us know that the most attractive thing about us is our modesty. Or the infamous Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke, which instructs us to let him liberate us because we're good girls and he knows we want it. We watch movie after movie in which 50-year-old male actors are paired with disposable 20-year-old women. We see the public backlash as Miley Cyrus, a young female singer, is criticised for her sluttiness on stage at an awards show, while her critics neglect to mention the older male dancing behind her. We're confronted by a culture in which the rising availability of pornography has meant sex is no longer seen as an act of intimacy, but an act of power, violence, and control. We're part of a society in which rape is illegal, but in which 1 in 4 women will suffer from sexual abuse, and 15 out of 16 rapists will never see the inside of a jail cell. We're taught to remove all traces of puberty from our bodies, as we live amidst a culture of sexualizing young girls and fetishizing youth. Body alterations like Brazilian waxes, breast implants, even the shaving of leg and armpit hair have become a rite of passage into womanhood. As if it wasn't hard enough to survive puberty unscathed, suddenly we need to achieve a look of sexiness while simultaneously resembling a prepubescent child. Have you ever noticed that in the ads for hair removal products, the actual body hair of women is never shown? It's almost like to see a woman's body in its natural state has become unacceptable. As a young woman, I've grown used to seeing my gender constantly degraded, shamed, or harassed based on what we look like, and I really wish that I didn't have to be used to this. There's a pressure that we face, a pressure to reach a certain unattainable ideal which is presented to us via the media constantly. The ideal we're taught to aim for is based on the image of the perfect girl, the young woman that we should all strive to become. The perfect girl is smart, but never smarter than a boy, because she doesn't want to make anyone uncomfortable with her intelligence. Active, but sexy and skinny at the same time. Powerful, but gentle and unconfrontational. Funny, but without trying too hard, or else it might seem desperate. Beautiful, but she never wears makeup or spends hours fixing her hair, because that would be vain. Sexy, but without having sex, because that would make her a slut, and without refusing sex, because that would make her a prissy. She has to be skinny, but still love cheeseburgers, because girls that eat salad and go on diets are boring. She has to be empowered, but cannot ask for respect from boys, because that would make her aggressive and a bitch. As you can tell from that list, not only are the demands placed upon young women exhaustingly numerous, but they're impossible. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. This image of the perfect girl is perpetuated primarily by the media, and she leaves you little slack. The ultimate goal for girls remains marriage. Yes, we should strive for success, but we must always remember that marriage is pretty close to the be-all and end-all. Little girls are taught to dream of their white wedding. Girls at my school sometimes wistfully claim that they aim to be a trophy wife. And it's a joke insult to call girls who won't get married cat ladies, because we can all picture their future as they try to fill the void left by the absence of a romantic relationship with more and more pet cats. In the wise words of Beyonce, we raise girls to see each other as competitors, not for jobs or for accomplishments, but for the attention of men. It's as if we as women won't ever be whole without a relationship, and as if we as women need to fight each other to achieve that. The culmination of all these pressures, these expectations, these stereotypes that are placed on a girl's shoulders mean that she has little room to just be, to exist as herself. We strive constantly to reach a level of perfection that's an impossibility within itself. So young women are left hating ourselves with a deep insecurity which underrides a lot of what we do. Everywhere you look, you'll find girls who are insecure, women who spend hours wishing they were someone else, that they had a different nose, different thighs, a different speaking voice. I once even heard a girl complaining about the shape of her earlobes. I've noticed in a lot of my classes at school that the girls never put their hand up. If a teacher asks one of us a question, we'll answer like this, posing our answer as a question, because we're never confident in ourselves, in our own ability to make a correct judgment. We aim to take up as little space as possible, crossing our legs, losing weight, not speaking too loudly or too brashly. The headlines in women's magazines tell you that if you follow the diet they promote, you'll lose weight and feel great. They tell you that if you follow this one simple rule, your belly fat will melt away. They tell you that if only you reach that certain level of tonnage in your arm muscles, that new target weight, that next level of perfection, all of your life problems will disappear and you'll finally be happy. What these magazines might not tell you is how it feels to have to convince your best friend that she's allowed to eat a piece of her own birthday cake. What these magazines might not tell you is the number of times girls at my school have looked at those very articles and proceeded to call themselves whales, before jokingly suggesting that they kill themselves as a favour to all of those of us who have to look at them. What the magazines might not tell you is the story of the girl who went home for the summer holidays, came back at the start of last year with an eating disorder, began to date the most popular guy, and was praised by girls all throughout the school for her self-control. What the magazines might not tell you is how it feels to be jealous of another girl's mental illness. When society tells you that you're not perfect, calls you ugly, and instructs you to change your body so often, it's hard not to listen. For boys, it's different. Their transition into adulthood doesn't involve the same unrealistic and unattainable beauty standards, and it doesn't include the same constant and unsolicited evaluations of how well you measured up to those standards. But removing gender stereotypes isn't simply the liberation of women from their oppression. It's also the liberation of men from their confines too. The confines that dictate our accepted definition of masculinity, namely being strong, rich, unemotional, and tough. So I'm a feminist because I don't think that gender, or the stereotypes that our society associates with gender, should ever be a barrier or limit on the development of any human being. I'm a feminist because I'm sick of hating myself and feeling guilty all the time. And I'm sick of seeing girls and women around me do the same. I'm a feminist because I would love the freedom to one day become the crazy cat lady and not be seen as lonely or pathetic, but to be seen as fulfilled within myself. I'm a feminist because I would love my daughters to grow up in a world where they can explore who they are as people without the stereotypes of gender telling them who they should be. Thank you.
How insightful from one so young, and I just have no doubt you will challenge every stereotype everywhere you go in life. You'll crash through every door and ceiling that you want to, and I just want to thank you for your wisdom and your reflections in your contemporary world. And a lot has changed, which is good, but there's so much more that can change. And in particular, leading us to think about the sexualisation of women, the commodification of women that impacts so much on their self-esteem. And we do need people like you telling your friends and those friends telling their friends that they're okay and that they're not Vikings and that they can be feminists. So thank you, Mariah. I'd now like to introduce Ella Cuthbert. Currently you're in Year 6 at Mildura Public School in the ACT, and Ella has, as Anna pointed out, participated in a number of the WISE programs, the Leadership and Respectful Relationships programs, and you've just been elected sports captain for your house. What's your best sport? Running. So you're in a little athletics awards. Just running fast. Okay, so please join me in welcoming Ella to the stage.
can't trust me to do the techniques that you don't play. So, okay, the first question that Ella is going to talk about is, why do you like being a girl, Ella?
I don't know why I like being a girl, but I just do. And I wouldn't change to be a boy if I could. If I had to say why I like being a girl, I would say lots of little reasons. But I guess the main reason I like being a girl is because I understand them better than boys.
So, Ella, what does gender equality mean to you?
To me, gender equality means being able to do anything I want without someone saying no because I'm a girl.
Yeah, well done.
And what rights are most important to girls or you as a girl?
To me, the most important right is to be able to feel safe, but there are many other important rights, like the right to be treated the same as boys and the right to get education.
And you've just been elected as a house captain in your school. Why did you choose to nominate?
Well, I really love sport, and I thought it'd be a great way to share my passion with my house and schoolmates. I also like encouraging people to try their hardest and achieve their best.
And you've recently done the YWCA's Respect, Communicate, Choose program and the Every Girl program. Did this change the way you and your friends think about boys and girls?
A lot of what we talked about in the programs, I sort of already knew, but the programs made us think more about relationships and what impact we had on other people. Every Girl was really fun. We got to go to Parliament House and talk to politicians.
Thank you, Ella.
Thanks, Ella. I think the leadership of your school and your house is in good hands, and I wish you all the best as captain. And I assume you have to do certain things and stand in front of people and talk to people like you did today, and you did a fabulous job. So thank you very much. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Heidi Beck. Heidi has worked as a management consultant for 10 years. Is that right? Yeah, and currently works as the head of strategy at Qantas, and and that's been in the news lately, so you might have a bit of insider intelligence for us, being one of the youngest women to be hired into the Qantas senior executive ranks. You joined the YWCA board in 2009, and you are on that board as a young women representative. So please give Heidi a warm welcome.
There's a lot more people here than it looks like from the front row. Look, I might start off just actually by responding real briefly to both Mariah and Ella, because I think you gave me some thoughts and I was kind of busily jotting them down as I was going through it. And Mariah, I think you will be happy to know there are some other individuals out there like you. I don't wear makeup generally as a rule. I usually just don't have as much time to put it on. And I don't think I'm very good at it when I do, so I typically end up not wearing it to the detriment of my mom, who says you should always put your best face forward across the board. But she tells my younger brother that the exact same way too, so it is a gender-neutral thing that she's always taken, and in her mind anything you can do to put your own first impression forward, regardless, is important. However, you can tell I really listen to her, because I usually still don't wear makeup. I don't cook. I'm really bad at it. My husband is the cook in the family. I've burned just about everything I ever attempt to cook and don't do a very good job at it. But I love baking, and that love and everything I was ever taught of came from my grandfather, who taught me how to bake anything and everything out there. And I don't know where he would have learned it from, because he would have come from a world back in the pre-World War II and post-World War II time that I didn't even know men learned how to bake. But he was one of the very best, and he constantly fought his own way through the equivalent in the US of the CWA to always be allowed to enter the equivalent of those types of competitions. And he fought his own gender imbalances constantly of being able to enter these competitions as the only man across the board in it, and often had to prove that it was actually him who had entered it and not his own wife, who burned everything, by the way. I played baseball when I was younger. To Ella's point on running, I was a baseball player, not a softball player. I couldn't tell you why that's what I chose to do. I just liked it and just enjoyed it. So as much as you want to just keep doing what you like, don't let anyone ever tell you you can't do it. You may find yourself still being one of 3 or one of 4 as I was playing it or doing that type of sport, but keep doing it because when you ask for it and ask for things, often you won't be told no, but you'll be stopped by your own worry that people will tell you no. I've never really considered myself smart, but if you do look at the basic facts of having been offered a full scholarship to university and gone to HBS, which has an acceptance rate of less than 10%, been hired by McKinsey not once but twice, both at the undergraduate level and then following on from HBS, and even the role I have at Qantas now, the facts would say I'm smart and would be smarter than most men. Take that as it is. It kind of has been one way it is. I've always been told I'm too assertive. I've often raised my hand too much in class. So just a response then for you and some of the things I was just jotting down that you've mentioned, Mariah. There's out of history, there are some things that are inherently feminine by what I've done. I do love baking. I do love scrapbooks. I still like looking nice, but more for myself and not for other people, and I interpret that in my own way. I do have the history of having eaten half of my entire birthday cake, and I would have finished the rest of it if there weren't people to share it with. That was just 2 years ago as well, so who knows how much bigger it would have been when I would have been younger. But what I wanted to talk more generally today was just about some of the same concepts of how stereotypes have affected me and the decisions I've made, and when those have been intruded into my own life. So I'll reflect on personal experiences and history, but I'll come back to what those lessons have meant. Because I think Mariah's touched on a lot of the broader bits incredibly well, and I couldn't do those comments justice, but I can talk about my own personal experience and background. I'll talk a bit about what that means having been a girl and now being a young woman, and I'll even touch it on a couple of occasions of how the Y has played quite a huge part in me as I've learned some of those individual lessons. There's 2 stereotypes I'll address directly. One of those is that the stereotype that in order to be successful, women have to act more like men. And the second stereotype that I will address more heads-on is that a proper balance between your school, your work, and your life and everything else means having it all and doing all of it. Because I think those are both important stereotypes that I live and actively run through and try to address every day as I go through it. On the first, having to act more like a man to be successful, what I think the stereotype should say is that an organization or a group that you join, that culture is important and you have to respect that culture. Your fit as an individual into that culture does matter, and you may not always fit into every organization. We're a collection of individuals, not a typical individual that fits into it. But if at any point you stop being true to yourself and who you are, then you will always fail. And that means if you are not the kind of woman who wants to be like a man, then you will always fail. If you are the kind who individually fits the types of things that typically are seen as male, then you will do well because that's who you are, not because that's what an organization demands. And there's 3 events in my life that will help me learn and work through this lesson. The first is one of the first meetings I turned up to on graduating from university. I was 22, I had just been hired at McKinsey, and I went into a meeting in a boardroom with the CEO and several of his direct reports. I was the youngest and the only woman in that room at that time of this individual organization. That was about 12 years ago. And what I was wearing, I had a suit that looked like any of the other consultants. It was black, it had a blue collared button-up shirt. I looked like the typical consultant, and I had dressed exactly like everyone else out there. I had never worn a collared shirt in my life before that day. I also downplayed the lack of experience I had and who I was in that room. I didn't embrace being 22 at the very beginning of my career. I didn't speak up. I didn't raise my hand, or speak up. If I raised my hand, I would have probably called it out very clearly. But I didn't call out and I didn't embrace who I was. I tried to downplay it, and I referenced when I did speak the vast years of experience of the organization that I worked for, rather than anything that I had offered or had done on my own. That evening, I went to an event at my university where I spoke about being a woman who had gotten this phenomenal opportunity at one of the internationally most renowned organizations. And the 20-year-old daughter of that CEO happened to be in the audience. And unbeknownst to me, she'd come up and asked a whole bunch of questions afterwards, and I gave her the perspectives and things I was doing. I didn't even think about what I'd done in that meeting that day until her dad walked up and said, "Didn't I see you in this meeting we had this morning?" And I went, "Yes." And he said, "I just want you to have a think about everything you've talked about in this panel and whether you lived that this morning. Because what I saw in that room today was a scared young girl wanting to fit in and didn't act like the confident woman who sat up in this panel and spoke in front of the university this evening." And I was so taken aback, I almost cried, because that's what I do when I feel very confronted. But his messages have stuck through me consistently behind it, because what I had not done was been true to myself. I had not lived what I had said I was doing. I tried to become the culture or what I thought was the right thing to do and fit in. And I didn't try to be who I was. I haven't worn a blue-collared shirt since, but there's quite a lot of collared shirts I do like. I still often wear pantsuits because I'm more comfortable in them, but it's because I'm more comfortable, not because I feel like that's what's necessary. And I took that individual's point to heart and where I have experience and background, I reference it, and where I don't, I'm also quite happy to put up my hand and say, if I know I don't have the same number of years of experience here, but here's my perspective and why I think that it matters. I've lived by that every day since then, and I hold that individual's comments every day when I look in and make sure that I can walk away from everything going, was I at least true to who I was? Second part of learning this lesson is, it's a bit of going, I'm going to call it becoming old gracefully. So I'm 32 years old, which I still think I'm young. I'm still normally the youngest woman in a room. I'm still normally the youngest individual in there. However, even at the YWCA, I'm no longer technically qualified for being a young woman director, because that ends at 31. I think I'm still the youngest on the board. There may be one other younger than me. I haven't changed how I'm feeling. I still feel very young. I still am the youngest one in the room every day, but I know that I'm not going to be forever. And the first time I got asked about 6 or 7 months ago now, one of the women who works for me now wanted advice because she's now pregnant with her first child, and she goes, "You've actually been able to make it all work. How did you do it?" And my answer on that was, I'm not sure I'm doing it every day. I certainly wouldn't say did, but it had me pause and think about the fact that this isn't going to be where I am always. I'm not always going to be able to lead by being one of the youngest. I'm going to have to make that mental shift to having that generation come from behind and need that support coming from me. So the lesson has been ingrained. I won't say it's been learned yet, because I still haven't found an answer for how to make that work, but it is something, at least for Mariah and Ella, that you guys make me think of every day, that I need to make that transition and make it work. Second stereotype is this one on balance, which I'm not sure the others will necessarily discuss, and that's your school life balance, your balance with your friends. If you're in a career, it's your work-life balance. And I have constantly fought with the idea that what this means is having it all and doing it all. Mariah spoke about being a woman means being everything, and the mom and the domestic goddess and everything all at one time and giving up nothing. What I think that stereotype should actually say is, it means having the best mix for you across everything and acknowledging the trade-offs and being okay with the trade-offs that you have to make, and every day revisiting that decision and what those trade-offs are until you're happy. And those trade-offs are important. When I was a young consultant and all the way up until 3 years ago, balance for me meant working 70 hours a week, traveling every single day. I spent more than 18 months in Perth, so I do believe I've seen enough of WA and the rest of the country to know what I love and what I don't like about every capital city, and to understand how every part of Australia is different. And I lived with my BlackBerry on my bedside table, and typically was never more than 2 minutes away from anything from a work perspective. Professionally, I was doing everything I needed to move up the ladder, and I was moving up it quite quickly. It did mean I saw my husband on weekends and holidays. We took longer holidays, but every day during the work week I wouldn't be home. And I justified it, and I thought of it as balance because it was a work hard, play hard balance that I met. And for many years it worked, and I was happy, and it was fine. What I missed in it was I did not have any women to really look up to directly. There were very few women in the organization and the clients that I was with at the time. I didn't see any that had that type of balance, but I also didn't see the diversity in type of man I was working with either. I was a single woman working in an area where men would have either been single or they would have had a family, but at least across the organizations I interacted with, clients and where I worked, every one of them had a partner staying at home. None were juggling 2 careers. None were juggling single parenthood. None had that diversity of experience that there was anything else other than what I was living at the time. And when I decided to start a family, that meant there was no background or personal network for me to reach out to understand how to navigate it. And it was something I needed to change. But in the meantime, that's where the Y fit in from a female mentorship perspective. I had been the one thinking all the way back 10 years ago. I chose the career I wanted to do. I loved it, and I loved the work that I did. That meant going into a place where there weren't a lot of women, and that was the way that it was. I could work my way through it and build up women who were in there, and I did actively every day. But I added to that by becoming involved in the Y, because that was a group of women from all across multiple industries, from across for-profit and non-profit, who were then there to help me be my support system and give me other people to look up to who had been successful in industry and been successful in other areas. I added to my own network that way. Women like Josephine Zucker and Tristan Langers, who's here now, are women who I can see are doing the same types of things and involved in the same things I'm doing every day. That gave me the support I needed and also gave me the opportunity to start being the kind of leader I wanted to be. I got immediately involved in some of the Y New South Wales programs, and through one of them, through YQuest, which I think has not been done in the last year, 2 of the young girls who worked through that program I still speak with on a fortnightly to a monthly basis on what they're going through in their own careers. So it gave me the chance to add back, but it also gave me what I was missing in my career and gave me the balance at the time I needed it. But it didn't mean that balance lasted forever. When I got pregnant, there was no one to appreciate the physical realities and pure limitations that even I had no idea I was going to go through. Everyone I talked to was supportive, but with no actual background to understand how to be supportive. I think I mentioned the people in my network were men with partners at home. None had been through morning sickness. None had been through labor. The best advice I got from one of them was, well, I told my wife take more time off and go to a spa. And I mean, how do we do that with 2 board meetings in the next week and all of this stuff going on further and 3 flights to Perth next week? I would love to take a few days off and relax. And I got this reality of going, that's a very good point. You can't do that. So while they were very supportive and wanting to be helpful, I didn't have the people around me to help make that happen. And on top of that, I was my own harshest critic, with no one around to help me understand what was normal and what should happen and what was okay and what wasn't. I started failing at things and I didn't live up to my own personal standards. And that's where it was the hardest of all, is I couldn't do everything anymore. All of a sudden, 70-hour weeks just were not physically possible. And I couldn't see a world in which it would work once my son was born, because I wouldn't be able to spend 4 days, 5 days a week, and nor did I want to anymore. Well, the definition of balance no longer fit. And I had 2 choices. Try and continue to adapt to an organization and work the way that it was, or decide to change careers. And that was a very hard decision to leave something I loved to do and something I loved being part of. But when I stepped back and thought about, can I adapt enough to the needs and can I work within an organizational culture enough to make it work with all of the support that's there, or do I want to? And I chose not wanting to. I could be a trailblazer, I could go out, I could try and set the standard and be the first person that was in there, and I thought it's going to be better to find something else that now fits me in this phase of life. And at first I felt like that was a failure, and I stepped back and think, no, what I all have done is reassess and rethink about where I fit and what things are going in life. All I've done is make the next big step. And that's where That's where Qantas comes in, and that's how I found Qantas, was in re-looking and saying, what do I want to do next? What about what I've done for 10 years do I love, and what do I want to change and what the new balance is? There's 4 facts I want to refer to about Qantas a moment. 30% of senior executives are women. Those are the women who report to Alan Joyce and up to 2 layers down. 40% of Qantas's identified talent lists are women. That's the best bets. That's who's going to succeed and who's going to go up. Company-wide, there's a 97% return rate from maternity leave. That's women who go on maternity leave for, under Qantas's definition, up to 2 years and come back. And only 3% leave or do what I did of leaving my prior employment and doing something else or not return. The 4th fact is one that's already been touched on, is male champions have changed. Alan Joyce is one of the inaugural members on that, and his role in this is directly felt and actively advocated within and inside of the Qantas group. And as an aside to Liz Broderick, I want to say thank you, because I believe I'm a direct recipient of that program, and believe I'm a direct recipient entering into it, into everything that had been set. Because all of these facts and all of these figures there, they didn't exist 3 years ago at Qantas. They didn't exist to any degree across any of those companies. And for someone looking for a job coming off maternity leave, asking for a 4-day work week, asking for the flexibility to take a child to and from daycare every day, and to come in and take a bet on a woman they don't know who hasn't worked there at all, I think it was only the mindset shift inspired by that program that has enabled me to be able to be there. So I did want to say thank you on that. But in doing so, I had to make some personal changes to me. So take that. And to deliver that type of thing as an organization like Qantas does, you need both the supportive organization and people, and that's the senior leaders, male and female, need to personally live by that every day. But then you have to do it, and you have to actively manage it. I knew half this lesson when I joined. I had some great advice, mostly from the other women at the YWCA South Wales, telling me, just go ask for what you want, be bold, don't be afraid, stay assertive. You'd be surprised. The worst is they tell you no, and you've already decided you're looking for a new job. And there were other organizations, respected companies in the Australian landscape that couldn't give me everything they wanted and wouldn't give me that type of flexibility, and I didn't take it personally. I said, look, if I'm not the peg that will fit and I'm a square peg in a round hole, then that's fine, I will find somewhere that will fit. So in my first conversation or interview, as you could put it, with my current boss, who's Rob Markley, and the executive manager of strategy, I was quite blunt. I said I wanted a 4-day work week, I wanted to leave, I wanted to make these things work, and I explained all of the issues of balance I had in the past, and I fully expected him to come back and say that's going to be hard. And he came back and said, that's fantastic, you just work it out and tell me how you're going to work it out and I'll do what I can. That was the it for the interview. I'm sure he'd done all sorts of background research in every other interview I've been through so far and tested the rest of it. But he took a risk, and he still takes a risk every day. Every Monday night I send an email that here's where I am with everything going on. As Qantas gets ready for its annual results or its performance tomorrow, which is not looking great because everyone knows from the paper, I've been deeply involved in the prep for everything on that. To have someone materially and deeply involved in all of that and not there every Tuesday, that is an absolute risk that he takes every single day. And at the same time, I also probably don't deliver my full 80%. I still probably go over it. I counted some of my average. I still work between 45 and 50 hours a week, at least in the last few months. I still answer phone calls from time to time on a Tuesday. Rob has to come back and ask me if things are necessary when I make trade-offs and do things on Tuesday and question me on the decisions I'm making. But then he trusts the decisions that I make. And it's not the perfect balance, and I mess it up from time to time, and I think at the point I'm at now, I'm my own worst enemy, because what lesson I'm slowly learning but haven't ingrained yet is that when you go part-time, you have to go part-time too, not just everyone else. And if I don't fully pull back to 80%, that means I'm only 80% effective. I don't know about some of you in school, but in school, if you got an 80%, that was a C, and that was average, and I didn't like doing that as a young kid. So saying I'm only 80% now means I have to dial back, and I have to make those adjustments. And I've got to do that because I've got to think about how everything else is going. But I can only do that with the support of others. And I've got great support at work and phenomenal support at home. I've got a husband who stays home when needed. We actively manage who stays home when the baby is sick. He has since asked the Department of Defense, where he works, to go down to an 80% platform himself, and finally feels comfortable enough asking for that. But it's taken him a year of seeing how great it is that I've done for him to even feel comfortable asking. So there's a general ask I would have out there of companies across the board, that while we think about balance for women, we need to think about it as balance for gender. If a man wants to stay home part-time to be a primary caregiver and spend a day with a child, we need to be just as willing to let him do that, and just as little on the stereotypes as a female, and to make that happen. It's been paining me to see him go through individual concerns and worries about what impact it will have on his career. And a couple times the quote he gave me was, "It's not like I'm a woman where it's seen as acceptable. It's not as acceptable for me to go part-time." And that's in an inclusive environment that promises the best of being and run by the government. So it's something we as women need to be just as worried about in our own organizations, that we're providing the same opportunities for the men who work for us. To sum it up today, so my colleagues are far more diverse in thought and background than I've ever had before. The choices I've made to surround myself with people who give me that balance have been critical to me having the right balance in my life. It is not something I do and then forget about. Every day I think about, am I getting the right balance right? And some days I'm not. Some days I fail at it. But in aggregate, I think I've got it. But I know that at some point life will switch again. Potentially in September when my second child is born. We'll see what happens after that. But I know I have to actively think about those choices every single day. I have to also surround myself by a peer and a mentor group that are going to be the most helpful to me. And only I can manage that. And if I allow people around me to push those stereotypes, then I'm just as much at fault as those that are holding stereotypes in place. And I have to make those choices on my own. Everything I wrote. I thought I'd have a better close up, but I don't.
Thank you. Got a lot of emotional intelligence there, and I want to thank you for sharing your journey with us and your story, as a professional woman, as a mother, parent, and as a human being who tries to juggle stuff, as we all do. But I was thinking as you were speaking, in order to have trade-offs, you've got to have choices. And I was thinking about my own mother, who died a couple of years ago at 91, and who topped the state in Queensland for maths and wanted to be an architect. But she wasn't allowed in that faculty at that time, so she became a teacher, and I think she enjoyed that too. But it's great that people have choices to trade off. I also think it's a really good point that you make about seeking help and gathering people around you and other women around you. That's really important and a good lesson for others to think about. And the last message that you had was back yourself and go ask. I think that's a fantastic message for young women today. So thank you. So our final speaker is a remarkable young woman, Yari Bangura. And Yari fled the civil war in Sierra Leone, as you've heard, and spent time in a Guinea refugee camp prior to coming to Australia. So I just cannot imagine what that experience is like, Yari. And she's now an ambassador for the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, and she also does a lot of important work in the Marrickville community, community-based work. So let's give Yari a warm welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am very delighted and grateful to be here today, standing in front of all of you. I would first like to thank my God for making me be alive today to present this day in my life. This is the story of many women all around the world Sometimes in our life, we experience decision making about ourselves. This is the story of one woman that millions of women have related to. She was a very bright girl who lived in Sierra Leone. This girl desired an education so badly that she was a very bright girl who lived in Sierra Leone. This girl desired an education so badly that, seeing her passion and willingness of education, an elder promised her to put her into school, but in one condition: she would go and ask her father for permission before he would sponsor her for her education. So she went willingly and gladly. When she went to her father, she told her father the good news. She was very excited. She says to the dad, "I want to go to school." The dad says, "No, you can't go to school." Then she says, then she was saying, "Why not?" She was questioning her dad. Why can't I go to school? The dad says, "Because your brother is at school." She was sad. She started crying. The father then says, it's her choice to make, either her brother's future or her own. The father then, she wasn't happy. Then the father turned around and told her, to pick her choice. When she refused, she refused to accept both. The father then ran after her, chasing her around the village. She has no other choice. She has no other choice, opinions, rather than to get married and raise up kids like her mother did. This girl grew up to be a woman and still feel not good enough. Her life was not fulfilled. This is a story of seizing someone's heart desire, passion, and vision, making that person feel like their life is meaningless. Another example is someone that I know who have been through similar situations. When they migrate to Australia, where education is recognized, decision making was way better than their home country. When this woman's father refused to give her an education, coming to Australia, she felt very insecure to relate to other women who are educated. She felt not good enough in the eyes of others due to her lack of education. I was a victim of this situation as well, coming from a country where there was war at a time. Your parents losing everything they have worked for, but fortunate enough to come to Australia as a refugee. Sometimes I wonder how people understand the journey we came from, settling in the land where there is less violence and no war. We've got to trust our children with their dreams and help them to achieve them, as long as it is a safe professional that add value to our society. Parents must learn how to let go. I used to have a friend in high school. She has a beautiful voice, and she always dreamed and pictured herself to become a singer and a writer. But because of the fact that her parents disapproved of that professional, she ended up not following her passions and dreams. She has a great personality, but sometimes she speaks with anger. And if you don't understand her, you would think she is rude and you won't want to talk to her. One time at school, we sat down and we were talking. All of a sudden, she told me about her family and compared her with her younger brother. Already her parents had decided for her, the brother, to become a medical doctor. We have to stop picturing the success of our children. Another perspective is not what we desire, is not what the interest of our children. They might like something else. They might desire something else. Destiny is a thing that is born with an individual. We cannot stop or change our destiny, else we will kill it. It has been ordained that this child will become a great in the career or marriage. To a particular person, the child knows he or she is capable of doing the ability. For instance, when I start telling people my dreams is to become a human rights worker, sometimes people laugh and they tell me getting a job in that field of study is insecure, that I should study medical, that this will provide me job and food on the table. I was very discouraged because I have that passion since I was a little girl, even before the war. I always desired to help people. It was clear and struck to me that human rights was what I want to do. It was quite painful for me to become discouraged and disconnected with my dream. And I was disturbed as the voice alarmed through my head, telling me that I cannot do this career of my choice. I should do medicine, but with God's strength, I was always able to put myself together and dream big about my passion and my career. Even though this happened again with my writing, when I started to write my poetry, my story, and my song, my mother used to come to my room and tell me to go and look for a job, that all my friends are working. Sometimes I say to her, this is my job. She never believed it, even though I never have any money, but I chose my writing. I bear the entitled struggle, wanting to buy things and not having money to buy things for myself. But I felt joy in writing and fulfilled. I never stopped writing. I believe that God has blessed me with a talent I was not ready to let go. Here I am today, from the bottom to the top, achieving my dreams and writing my novel. This has touched so many people's hearts, emotionally for good. I would like to talk about my experience with education. I felt there was competition to achieve my goals in life. There were a lot of choices and decisions to make. It was hard for me to make up my mind. My mind was overwhelmed. Coming from the war zone, then to a country peaceful as Australia. It was like an eyes opening for me. How it opened my eyes and helped me to discover myself. Although this was a slow process, it then highlighted some things that we saw and heard of back home that were normal there, but here it's not normal or right. Women marriage, home life, domestic violence. It gives me an understanding of why some of the women that are victims of domestic violence appears to be ashamed by the experience and hide quietly. I also learned to speak up because it is a healing process and it hits the pain, knowing that you are not the blame. Don't see yourself as a victim, but the winner. To speak out also helps you to be able to free yourself from darkness and that you are covered and wrapped in. Try not to be bothered about what other people think about you. Do it for yourself. You are not a loser, you are a winner. Career. Here we have so many choices, but decisions are not always easy to make. It is important. It is important to you, otherwise it will be no meaningful to your life. You need to do what you need to do. I am not just a woman, I am a person. Take control of my life. We may be in a group, but we are individual people. We are human beings. Men, women need to be equal because it is the same life that runs through us. When I was young, the women were always in the kitchen and the men were outside while the young boys played soccer. To me, this was not equal. So one day, I went and played soccer with the boys. You think I got in trouble? The boys wouldn't let me play. Each person has an opinion, as this is what matters to me, not to be put down because I am a woman. I love myself the way I am. I find my own identity as a woman. Like I always quote Yari, the happy, color, carefree girl. I had been heard. Life can become meaningful for me. When I wake up in the morning, I feel complete. So we should be grateful that everyone is different, like many women. In my past, I had low confidence. When I looked in the mirror, I realized I was not seeing what others were seeing about me. So I practiced looking in the mirror and saying, I am a woman. Believe in the heart as a beauty. I say to young women, dress for your heart and not to please others, other people, to prove yourself to others. Otherwise, it could make you sad and distressed. Everyone is beautiful. You are all beautiful. There's so much pressure for women. You need to be strong. You need to believe in yourself. Some of the issue I have talked about are universal. Australia was an eye-opening for me as a young woman. I learned a lot about myself. To be honest, this country is better for women here, as there is more respect and opportunity to make your own decision. But when respect and opportunity let you down, remember to talk, as it is healing. Be open and be ready for life. Always don't bottle yourself up, or it will eventually make you sad and unwell. And I would like to share a poem with you that I usually get up in the morning and I look in the mirror, I laugh, and I say to myself, I love myself, and I am the most beautiful woman in this room at the moment. I say that in my house when nobody can hear me. So every time my family look around and says, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." So I will share this poem with you. It's called "I Am a Woman." I am a woman, Ginehorowe, strong woman, a fire you cannot destroy. Sierra sister, a mountain you cannot climb. I dream of preaching peace to millions of people, my people, Mihei, holding my hands, I love with Mandela's. I am a woman, Ginehorowe. I have been taught Ginefari, Saba, Dundumba, Yankadi, Tetri. I will bring back dancing to my homeland. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so very much, Yari, and you are the most beautiful woman in this room, and it's just such emotion that comes through in all the speeches today. I mean, it's been such a privilege. One of the great joys of my life, being the Sex Discrimination Commissioner, is I get to interact with young women every single day, and I have to say, I do feel so inspired when I think about the future of our country, the future of the globe, that it sits in the hands of talented, amazing young women that we have in the room today. So thank you all so very much for your presentations and really for reminding us, as Mariah did, about how it is that we are bombarded by Photoshop perfection. I love the terminology that you use and the fact that we can no longer eat the cake at our birthday and the other things around the objectification of women, but also being so strong and positive about, you know, changing that picture and moving ahead. So thank you for that. Thank you, Ella, very much for reminding us that I can do anything I want without, people can't say no to me just because I'm a girl. That reminding us that boys and girls are equal. They're not the same, but they are equal. That's our birthright. Why would we accept any less? So thanks for reminding us of that, Ella. And for Heidi, who's broken through every gender stereotype, including the cooking one, I'm with you on that, and the ironing and the cleaning, but also for reminding us about being authentic in whatever environment you see yourself. You know, this huge need to conform in a way that really robs you of your identity, that will never lead to success. And I'm so pleased to see that you're transforming both Qantas and Defence at the same time. So thanks a lot for that. And then to Yari about reminding us that stories are a catalyst for change. They absolutely are. And that quest for education for women all across the world, and we hear it when we go into the United Nations, as we will again next week, just the importance of education in really allowing women to participate not just in their own communities and families, but in the global economy. And that asking ourselves a question, are we prepared to put aside 50% of the world's population on the basis of gender? Because that's really what's at stake when we don't educate young women. So thanks for reminding of us that, and hold on to your passion for human rights. We need strong human rights activists like you. So yeah, don't go into medicine, you stay right in human rights. And dress for your heart, that's absolutely right. So I think we heard so many wise words today from our young women. It's fantastic that we can start to provide a space for the voices of young women and girls to be heard, because my own view, and I know it's one that Megan shares, is it's not enough. We don't create those spaces for young women to actually speak up, and we don't often hear what 16-year-olds think about gender equality, or what 9 or 10-year-olds think about their life and their space via being voiced. So I think it's fantastic that we've been able to do that tonight, and I really want to thank our co-hosts tonight, the YWCA. As you've heard tonight, have some exceptional programs for young women and are doing so much to promote young women's leadership. So thank you, Anna. We're so delighted about your appointment here in New South Wales and all the fabulous other YWCA women that are in the room tonight. Thank you for the work that you do. I also want to thank the Minister. She's just such a great advocate. She speaks from the heart. She's deeply concerned about the fact that the weight of women and girls' progress rests on her shoulders. She's absolutely determined to do something about it, and it's a great joy also to have her as the Minister and to be able to work with her tonight. So most importantly, though, I want to thank Mariah, Yari, Ella and Heidi for so generously giving your time tonight to really thinking about what you're going to say and to share so many wise words with us. It's been a great pleasure to be here, and thanks to the audience for coming along. It's been terrific, so thank you. So enjoy International Women's Day and week or month. We could make it a year, actually. And remember to celebrate. So celebrate the achievements. Sometimes I feel deeply sad about, sometimes, and the things that you said, Heidi, the place of young women and the fact that we haven't made more progress. But when I think about that, I remind myself about the opportunities, the choices, the life that I have compared to, say, my grandmother or even my mother. So we're pointed in the right direction. We're going to point forward, keep walking. So maintain the rage, come with us, and you can start by having a drink up the back. Thank you.
Yo siempre viajando, realmente la gran vida. Empezaste a viajar para maintain the rage, start with the difficult back.